a death sale, and I'm just trying to give you some examples so your brain turns and you come up with your own. I remember working with, I always say the 3 Ds drive real estate, right? Death, debt, and divorce. And 2 of those are not fun specifically, tragic, death and divorce. And particularly in an estate sale or when someone's passed away, I used to tell the clients all the time the same thing. My job is to handle the real estate, your job is to grieve. Let me take care of this. You go deal with the emotions. Okay, it sounds really nice, but what am I doing right there?
Taking the burden off them.
I'm telling them what they're getting when they pay me.
Yeah.
I'm getting the load, so you can go deal with the tougher load, which is the emotional piece, right? So I think that that's important to just see the things you do and put it together and tell your story. Does that make sense to you guys? Any ahas real quick? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, you get really clear, if you decide to add any sort of leverage to your team or to your business, you get really clear on your value proposition, because you have to be able to explain that and articulate that to your clients. Because like with our team, I can sit there and say, hey, yeah, I've got the showing assistant, she's gonna go open some doors for you. And the client's gonna be like, I'm not gonna leave you. And by the way, I did that. That was my script. Just feel free to write that down. And then I realized that I wasn't clear on their value proposition. So then it changes to, my buyer specialist will be contacting you. She's going to be your point of contact. These are my boots on the ground. They're there every day. We're going to get you in a property within 24 to 48 hours so you don't miss anything. They know the market like the back of their hand. And that changes it a little bit. And when you have to think about your leverage pieces, you have to really think at a high level about what that particular person or that position or you, because that was the hardest one for me, brings to the table. Because now I've given off, I've given up showings, transaction coordinating, this, that, the other thing. Okay, now what's left? So why am I here? And once you get really clear on that, it's really funny because it also pushes you to a new level, because you now realize none of that is your responsibility. Negotiations, contracts, having that skill set is, so let's go ahead and up our game. And that's any position on a team or even as a single agent. Yeah, exactly. So knowing your value proposition isn't only great for your clients, it was very beneficial for me and for our team, because it makes you now perform to that value, if that makes sense.
A little introspection.
Yeah.
It clarifies what you're doing. Absolutely. Yeah. The third piece of the value proposition is that it will vary depending on whether your customer is a seller or a buyer. I know that sounds basic and elementary, but I just want to hit it. Obviously the value that you bring to a seller is going to be different than the value that you bring to a buyer, and so you got to have you got to have them tailored for both, because while you're doing the same overall job, which is to get the transaction closed, you're doing it from a different paradigm with each one. And then finally, and I love this last statement on the value proposition. Partly because I love the word that's used here. The value proposition is a covenant between you and your customer. It's an agreement.
If I'm representing a buyer, these are the things I'm going to do for you. Now, by the way, that also puts you in a position of having to meet their standards. If I say this is what I'm going to do, I better perform. And the definition of a covenant is an agreement between 2 or more persons. And that's what you're making, is an agreement between each other. That I will provide this for you. So many times I've listened to realtors, my client doesn't want to live with me, my client doesn't want to work with me, my client did this, my client did that. Well, okay, I'm not saying those things don't happen, but what am I doing to earn that service? What am I doing to deliver the value? And that comes back to the difference between victim and being accountable. We just always step up and say, where's my DNA on this whole situation? What's my role in this? It makes a difference. Okay. I want to talk about the difference between a value proposition and your unique selling proposition. Your value proposition is what you'll do with your customer.
That's the conversation between me and my buyer, or me and my seller. The unique selling proposition is a marketing and promotional statement that differentiates you from your competitors. Okay? So you guys are all, we'll just use this as an example. Dave's out here branding himself.
He's hot.
He's hot. Absolutely.
That's word on the street.
That's what they say.
What I'm hearing.
Now, this is is a really baseline example, but it's an example. On his card, it says, Dave Brown Team, a tradition of excellence, or tradition of excellence. He's saying, I am excellent. Now, do you see ads for realtors all over the place? Sure. I mean, you're always in a position of competitive marketing. So coming up with a very quick, unique selling proposition is what you can use in your marketing. It's what mine was, no one works harder for you. That was what mine was for years. And it was a quick tagline, it went out, you know, and it conveyed a message, I'm gonna work hard to get your, I mean, it's a pretty simple message, I don't have to explain it.
How does that work?
In French and Canadian. I speak Canadian. So you're gonna wanna come up with a couple of those things, you know, and have that out there. Can you think of any taglines or USPs or branding statements that you've seen out there? Does anybody come to mind?
I used to remember the condo queen.
The bread man?
The
No one
milkman.
actually knows what that means, but we just know that he's the
You
bread
got a
man.
bread maker.
The milkman delivers.
The milkman delivers. Dan Wolf's was ahead of the leader of the pack. Kristen's setting a standard of excellence. You see that on all of her signs.
Stars guaranteed.
So you see some of them out there. Here's the thing, guys. Would you ever launch a corporation to sell tennis shoes without a marketing plan? Would you ever launch any business? Let's just take a base business, a simple business, like a coffee shop, like a drive-through kiosk. They have, they have taglines. They have branding. They have all kinds of stuff that they do. And yet somehow we kind of just fly through and our name is our tagline. You know? So let's run it like a business. Come up with your unique selling proposition. Your value proposition says what you will do. Here's how you keep them differentiated. I'll just read this. Your value proposition says what you will do for your customer to earn your commission. By the way, it's not unique. We all do the same thing. You just want to tell your story better. Your unique selling proposition is a marketing and promotional statement that positions you as better than your competitors. Okay? So those are the two differences. Why would you present your value proposition? Number one, you want your customer to recognize your value. So here's the thing, when I say I'm going to do something and then I do it, they go, oh yeah, I remember that they said they were going to do that. If you just do it in the course of doing business, they're never going to notice it and they're not going to see any value. And you're going to be sitting at your desk going, it really makes me mad. They have no idea how hard I work for them and they can't even imagine all the hours and all the stuff I did for them and they are upset with me and I don't understand it. You didn't tell them what to watch for. Does that make sense? When you present your value proposition, your customers will not discount your value. If you tell them what you're going to do, then you do it, then they see it as value, they're going to be less likely to try and discount you. They're getting a high end, there's a reason that Nordstrom's is successful.
They may even tell you they want to pay you more.
Sometimes it happens. When you also illustrate all of that, your customers won't feel overcharged. Your customers will understand the complexity of what you do. I think sometimes, I think we take for granted, because we do this job every single day, we take for granted how complex it truly is to put together a real estate transaction, and we just assume that everybody knows how to do it. We'll go back to the conversation I was having with my friend last night about appraisals. And the question she asked me, she goes, well, why will my appraisal matter? I don't understand. Does that mean she's stupid? Heck no. She's a normal consumer who hasn't sold a house in.
Now, I can either just be like, well, we need it to get the loan through, or I can say, okay, let me stop and explain to you how this works. You know, and it's not my client, I'm just having a conversation with her, but trying to explain the complexity of what happens there. Finally, the last piece of why we present our value proposition, and I've already touched on it, is that it makes you live up to it. When you put it out there that this is what you're going to do, we have a higher propensity for actually fulfilling that. It's accountability, right? I hate to use the word because we use it so much, but that's exactly what it is. Your value proposition for your sellers, it really boils down to three things. You guys know these. What are the three things all sellers want? highest amount of money, shortest time possible, least hassle, right? Those are the three things that everybody wants. So your value proposition needs to circle around that, okay? They want all three. They don't necessarily want them in that order. Have you ever been writing an account, like, have you ever been in a multiple offer situation? You're on a buyer, you're representing a buyer, and you know you're in a multiple, and what does the smart agent do? And what do they ask? What's important to the seller? And why do we ask that question? Absolutely, because what you think is important to the seller may not be what's important to the seller. As the buyer's agent, if I'm calling, you, I may not know that they have to be in Charleston, South Carolina on a certain amount of days. So closing time becomes very important. I may not know, I don't know certain things I don't know. I may not know that they have you may have a seller like this that has a truly moral objection to paying closing costs. I've had a conversation of they should have their own closing costs. They should absolutely have, I don't understand why they, have you ever met somebody like that? Well, when I bought my house in 1972 and I did 20% down and I had all my closing costs, nobody paid them for me.
Yeah, doesn't matter, well, Mr. Seller, it's a little different market than it was in 1972. That, it doesn't matter, logic gone. Forget using logic. You take reason and rationale, throw it out the window. So a smart agent will know to ask the question, what's important? So your job when you're working with sellers is to figure out the order. Which is they all want the same three things in varying.
And you find out that hassle can often trump money when it comes to a cash offer.
Sure, hassle, I don't have to worry about this, I know, or, gosh, I don't want to do repairs. Great, Jen, thanks for bringing me the multiple offer, you're one of three, I'll just tell you right now that something's very important to my seller is they don't want to deal with repairs.
Yep.
Those kinds of conversations. Okay, so when you present your value proposition to the sellers, here's some statistics for you. And we've gone through these before, but I'll just run through them super fast because most of you have heard them, but I know there's people in here that haven't. This is what sellers say they want the most from you. This is from the NAR study of home buyers and sellers. So this is directly from the consumers. 25% of sellers, it is most important to sell the home within a specific time frame. 22% of sellers say that finding a buyer for their home is very important, and this is ranked in order. 16% marketing home to potential buyers, 16% pricing the home competitively, 10% finding ways to sell the home for more. It's interesting. That's not real high. They want it sold. 4% negotiating and dealing with buyers, 3% paperwork, inspections, and preparing for settlement. Customers are focused on the outcome. We need to focus on the service that leads to the outcome. The 10 service areas of your value proposition. Here's the 10 things you need to address. I'm just going to give you the cheat sheet. Here it is. Number one, you need a needs analysis. You've got to know what motivates your sellers, what's important to their sellers. You've got to know where they are. Number two, pricing strategy. How are you going to price it? Why are you pricing it? Where you price it? There's a few of you that have sent me sometimes emails that you send to your sellers that you attach with their CMA. Some of you guys do a really fantastic job of not just saying, here's the price I recommend, but really explaining why strategically that price is being chosen. I'll give you an example. When pricing a home, what do you guys, and we'll close with this, and then I'll get you out of here right on time. What do you look at when you price a house? Where do you start? Real estate 101.
Start with sold.
Start with sold, right? Why do we start with sold?
I want to see what
All you new people, this is important stuff.
because we know what they sold for.
Okay, so it's proven data, and we know an appraiser's going to look at it, correct? Okay, so then what else do we look at?
Actives,
Why?
because the market's moving. You need to know some laws, supply and demand.
Yeah, so it's just positioning, right? In a market where there's low inventory and there's nothing for sale, does anybody feel that way? Working with buyers? Positioning your home is huge. Why is it important? Because they're shopping, these buyers are looking at all the active properties. They know what's a good deal, they know what's not, they know what's on the market. So where you position your home is a big deal. When you're doing your pricing strategy, it's important to tell people that. Like if you're gonna, I can't believe we're back at the place in this market where we're actually having this conversation, but if you're gonna push the price, we never even said those words, 3 years ago. They were like, anathema on our house or something to say push the price.
What is you with all these big words today?
It's my same vocabulary. I'm about to graduate from high school. I'm feeling rather smart. So,
Here, I've got
it's important to say to the seller, we're gonna push this price a little bit, we're going a little bit over the last couple of solds, but here's why. When looking at the competition, there's nothing that's competing with you, and I think we can get it. Now, oh, by the way, I'm terrified of the appraisal.
Yep.
This is the conversation that you have. But it's important when you're doing that pricing strategy to explain it. This person, and I'll just close with this, this is value. This person that you're working with, it becomes your partner. You're on a journey together, right? So really look at them in that way and communicate with them as you would a partner. Communicate why you're doing what you're doing, what's going on in your head. Maybe even when you don't know, maybe say, I'm really struggling on this. On one hand, I don't see any competition and I really want to push the price. On the other hand, I don't want you upset if the appraisal comes in low. I'm going to think about this overnight. Just bring them into the process, and I think you'll find that they feel like, when they see you wrestle with stuff mentally, that's value. That's the complexity that you have to sell. Instead of just going, oh, yep, it's $250. That's the house, that's what we're going to list it at. But when you really show them, man, I want to get you the most amount of money, least amount of time, least amount of hassle. Oh, gosh, I really need to, let me ask around. I'm going to have a couple people review this. You all do that. I've done it for you. I've gotten the comps where you go, you're completely unbiased. You're not in the market. What do you think? Tell them you're doing that. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about.